Well, we had done something last time, and we have seen how this whole episode is presented in the original narrative of Savitri in the Mahabharata. There is a good deal of parallelism between what is there and what we have here in the epilogue. It's quite interesting to see that. But as I told you also, that when Shivandu's attention was drawn to what was left behind, what was still remaining to be done in November 1950, around 15th November 1950, he was told that the book of death and the epilogue were yet to be done. And at that time, Shivandu made a comment that, oh yes, about them we shall see later on. Now, this later on, in the context of the epilogue, cannot be therefore tied up with the narrative which we have in the Mahabharata story. It means that he certainly wanted to add many other things than what is there in the traditional story of Savitri. What is that? Impossible to imagine. What he wanted to add, impossible to see. But from the language, from some other phrases which are used here, even the early draft of Savitri of 1918, this was around 1918, we can see what could be expanded and brought out in a more elaborate manner in that later on can be seen in this canto itself. Now, before we proceed with that, let me just give you some quick statistics about this canto, about this book. Epilogue is, of course, the last book of Savitri, 12th book, and it has 3 sections. Section 157, 158, and 159. Section 157 has 55 sentences and 226 lines. In fact, that is the major part of the epilogue. 55 sentences and 226 lines. The next section, second section, has 25 sentences and 98 lines. And the last section, 159, has 6 sentences and 22 lines. So therefore, in all, we have 346 lines and 86 sentences in all. So the epilogue consists of just 86 sentences and 346 lines. Now 346 lines is approximately the same as we have in the opening canto of Savitri, the Simple Dawn. The Simple Dawn has 341 lines. Here you have got 346 lines. Now, if you take 346 lines and 86 sentences, again you see that on average each sentence has 4 lines. Each sentence has 4 lines on average. In fact, that is the general feature we notice throughout Savitri, that if you take the total number of lines and the total number of sentences, then it roughly turns out to be about 4, the ratio, you see. And that is also very well maintained here. You see. Now, let us quickly run through some of these things which we did last time also. Out of abysmal trance, her spirit woke. I told you last time that this abysmal is actually a profound trance, deep trance. It is not gloomy, frightening, dangerous, perilous kind of a trance. It is basically a profound trance. Abysmal trance, her spirit woke. Obviously, it is Savitri's spirit which had followed death and Satyavan to the transcendent, and now she is coming back to the earth, and therefore woke as if it was asleep to the earth. It was never asleep, but as far as the earth is concerned, it was asleep to the earth, the spirit. She had gone to the transcendent, and everything was left behind, so to say, unattended. Lain on the earth mother's calm, inconscient breast. That is the entire concern of Savitri. She is awaking to the reality of this creation, the reality which is governed at this stage by inconscience, which is lying in the breast of inconscience, the reality which is lying in the breast of inconscience. She saw the green clad branches lean above. You see, green clad branches lean above. Now, we have seen that the death has occurred under a kingly trunk, the banyan tree, under the kingly trunk, and therefore the branches are spreading around, and under that branches she is seeing something here now. So, green clad branches lean above. You see, that is your reference to the banyan tree, green clad branches. You see. Guarding her sleep. So it is that tree which is really guarding Savitri's sleep, Savitri's body. She has left her physical body here and gone out. She has gone out of her body. And normally, all these occultists, when they go out of their physical body, somebody who is trustworthy protects the body. Protects the body. In the case of Savitri, there is of course nobody around there. And who is going to guard her physical body? The kingly trunk. In fact, that is the greatness of the tree also, the kingly trunk. It is that tree which is guarding the physical body of Savitri when she has gone out of her physical body. Guarding her sleep with an enchanted life, and overhead a blue-winged ecstasy. What a beautiful phrase, a blue-winged ecstasy. Only a poet can write such a thing, you see. Blue-winged ecstasy. Savitri has come back, and it is all Ananda, Neela Ananda, blue, Neela Ananda. Well, blue is the color of Krishna. Ecstasy is Ananda. So it is Anandamaya Krishna who is there around her. She has come back, and it is the Ananda of Krishna which is there, what is surrounding her. And overhead, a blue-winged ecstasy, so like a bird is guarding her. Flutter from bough to bough with high-pitched call. So he is calling her from bough to bough. It's a very beautiful, it's indescribable. You can't really describe this phrase, you see. Overhead, a blue-winged ecstasy, fluttered from bough to bough with high-pitched call. Now, of course, in the immediate physical context, this may look a little odd. All this is happening now is in the evening. All this is happening in the evening, you see. Savitri is coming back, Satyavan's soul is coming back, more or less towards the evening, you see. Now, at that time, you can't say a bird is going from bough to bough. It will go and rest on its bough, on its nesting place, in its nesting tree, you see. It will go and just rest there, you see. And overhead, a blowing ecstasy flutter from bough to bough with high-pitched call. She is not going to give a high-pitched call in the evening like that, a bird, you see. Pardon me? Does it? Sometimes. Sometimes. Sometimes they do. So, could it be in that case, blow-wind ecstasy? What is a blow-wind ecstasy? Is it the peacock in the evening and giving a happy call to go from bow to bow? See, they go from bow to bow, you see, moving. And that, of course, corresponds to peacock. He comes with the peacock feeder down, you see. So, it is the bird of victory. Peacock is the bird of victory, bird of triumph. Bird of triumph. Vijaya Pakshi. Blowing ecstasy, flutter from bough. They do go in the evening, the peacocks, from tree to tree, branch to branch, there you see. And this being a huge big tree, on the banyan tree, you see, into the magic secrecy woods, peering through an emerald lattice window of leaves, and indolent skies reclined. The thinning day turned to a slow fall into evening's peace. So that's the description, how it is happening now in the evening. My whole scene is happening towards evening now, see, tell me. And then she pressed the living body of Satyavan. Well, he has come back now to life. And Savitri is feeling the warmth of his body also there. Living body of Satyavan. On her body's word is joy to be and breathe. She bore the blissful burden of his head between her breast, warm labor of delight. So he is reclining on her breast like that, you see. Bore the blissful burden of his head between her breast, warm labor of delight. Warm labor, yes, she has really fought a big battle. And she has become victorious. She must be really tired, so to say, also, you see. Labor, see. Blissful burden of his head between her breast, warm labor of delight. The waking gladness of her members felt. Waking gladness because she is coming out of her trance, as we have seen here. She is coming out of her trance, you see. She woke the spirit. She bore the blissful burden of his head between her breast, warm labor of delight. The waking gladness of her members felt. The weight of heaven in his limbs. My God, you see. You see, I mean, she has become so massive, so to say, with the bliss of heaven, with the joy of heaven, with the bowls of heaven, and she is feeling the weight of all that in him. A touch summoned the whole felicity of things, and all her life was conscious of his life, and all her being rejoiced, enfolding is obviously the joy of new union, of a heavenly union. That is what she is experiencing here. See. Now, there is a little difficulty. See, here we have, she bore the blissful burden of his head between her breast, warm labor of delight. What it means is that Savitri is coming back and Satyavan is resting on her breast like that, reclining on his breast like that, lying there. Now, this looks to be something different because when Satyavan was losing his breath, at that time he calls Savitri, he tells Savitri, lay down my soul and kiss me while I die. There, the description is 133.29. He says, such agony rends me as the tree must feel. But now here is the blue-winged ecstasy of the tree, you see. It has changed. Agony. The tree must feel when it is sundered. A while let me lay my head upon thy lap. He is asking, let me lay my head upon thy lap. It is on the lap. Now here he finds her between her breasts. From the lap it has come to breast, you see. It means that he must be lying down on the floor with her head on the lap like that, you see, folded legs. But now we are here, slightly different picture. It is on her breast, you see. We don't know. In fact, we have this one, 134.1. When Satyavan, his breath has ceased, so was she left alone in the huge wood, surrounded by a dim, unthinking world. There is nobody around, unthinking world. Her husband's corpse on her forsaken breast. Her husband's corpse on her forsaken. So if you go by that line, her forsaken breast, then it is very well tallying with this line, between her breast warm labor of delight, you see. Now the question is about her lap. A while let me lay my head upon thy lap. And here, this is very clear. Her husband's corpse on her forsaken breast. So if you go by that, it is consistent with this one, between her breast warm labor of delight. And then we have again 135.5. Calmly she laid upon the forest soil the dead who still repose upon her breast. Upon her breast. So Yama is there standing, death is there, and he is taking away the soul of Satyavan. Savitri has to follow him. So there at that point, she has to get up. The dead who still repose upon her breast. So both the descriptions tally with this one, between her breast warm labor of delight. And then again, 135.20, Savitri is clinging to the dead body of Satyavan. And death says, Savitri, release your clasp. Because by holding him back like that in your clasp, your husband is suffering. Woman, thy husband suffers. Savitri realizes what it means. And then Savitri drew back her heart's force. that clasped his body still, where from her lap, renounced on the smooth grass, softly it lay, as often before in sleep, etc., etc. Where from her lap, renounced on the smooth. So basically, we have got both the descriptions. Physically, we are trying to picturize what is actually the situation, whether he was lying in her lap or resting on her breast. So, I think this is very clear that at the time of death, when he is dying, his head is on her breast. He is reclining against her breast, flat like that, half erect, half lying down. But when he comes down from the tree with that pain in his heart, in his breast, and in his head, he says, Savitri, I am suffering of that. At that point, possibly, he is lying in her lap. He is resting, full, so that he can kind of recovers himself, relaxes himself. He is lying in her lap. But during that point and the moment of death, he says, lay down my soul, Savitri, and kiss me while I die. Perhaps possibly at that point, his head is on her breast. Some kind of a transition must have taken place between these two. So, I mean, that is the best way perhaps by which you can picturize the whole scene, depict the scene. When he is coming down from the tree, he is lying in her lap. At the moment of death, his head is on her breast. She pressed the living body of Satyavan on her body's world's joy to be and breathe. She bore the blissful burden of his head, you see, all between her breast warm labor of delight. The waking gladness of her members felt, the weight of heaven in his limbs, a touch summing the whole felicity of things. And all her life was conscious of his life, and all her being rejoiced, enfolding his. Well, that is understandable, you see.